Hey, keto freaks. In case you haven't heard, Richard Morris and I are turning the entire town of New London, Connecticut ketogenic in July 2017. Keto Fest isn't a conference. Conferences are for professionals. Festivals are for people. We will have some great speakers, yes, but also a pig roast, music, movies, cooking lessons, fitness lessons, bike tours, walking tours, and a whole lot of camaraderie among fellow Ketonians. Richard and I will both be there, as will many of our podcast guests and Facebook group admins. There's so much going on, I don't have time to tell you here. So go to ketofest.com and add your name to the mailing list so you'll know where to go and when in order to get your tickets. Keto Fest, real keto for real people. Welcome back to Two Keto Dudes. This is Carl Franklin from Connecticut in the United States. And in February of 2016, I put myself on a ketogenic diet to take control of my metabolism. In just 2.5 months, I managed to reverse all my markers of type 2 diabetes with diet alone. As of now, I'm about 80 pounds lighter with no sign of diabetes or heart disease.
I'm Richard Morris from Canberra, Australia, and I've also been on a ketogenic diet for over 2 years. When I started, I was very sick with complications from type 2 diabetes. Within 6 months of starting a ketogenic diet, all of my biomarkers of disease had disappeared. Disappeared. I've also lost about 80 pounds and have completely turned my health around.
And this show is a document of my progress through ketosis and Richard's experience thriving for years. And it's been about over 2.5.
Yeah.
In ketosis. And hopefully that might help a few people who are curious about this kind of dietary hacking.
Yeah. We're not doctors. We don't want to give anyone any medical advice.
Nope.
But we are keen to share our own experiences. We're actually both software developers, so we're not afraid of a little technical detail, are we, Carl?
Nah.
We have done some research into our own deranged metabolisms and the science behind them. We hope to share some of that research. Where possible, we intend to put links in the show notes to cite research supporting any claims that we make.
Yep. You'll probably work out pretty quickly that we are both foodies.
Oh, yeah.
We love to cook and we love to eat. In every episode, we both share a keto recipe that cannot be ignored.
We do.
So, Richard, let's start podcast episode 42.
Grit. We were actually going to call it the meaning of life, the universe and everything.
The answer to everything. Obviously, a callback to
the answer to everything.
To Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, but we found something more important to talk about.
Yeah, this is definitely more important. Before we get started, Richard, do we have any corrections or apologies from last week?
Last week? What did we do last week?
Friends and family.
It's all a blur. Yeah, I think friends and family, wasn't it? Yeah. No, I think we're good. I think we have no errata from that one. But if anyone finds anything in any of our podcasts, you can go back to podcast number 1. If you find something you disagree with, let us know and we'll call it out.
I think what we did is mostly start conversations around, what to do at the holidays with your family and friends that come down hard on you.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So let's recap what a ketogenic diet is. And a ketogenic diet is any diet that puts you into a state of nutritional ketosis where you are burning fat for fuel and generating ketones, ketone bodies. But the diet that we follow here comprises of 20 grams or less of carbs a day, incidental carbohydrates, mostly from green leafy vegetables, and maybe a few nuts. Or whatever's in heavy cream or cheese, and moderate protein, which scales based on how much lean body mass you have.
Sure.
And we use a measurement of 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per day for every kilogram of lean body mass.
Yeah, and that's worked for both of us, so yeah.
And the rest of it comes from fat.
That's it. All of our energy is from fat.
And lately, I've been using this method, which is whenever I get hungry, we only eat when we're hungry and we stop when we're full. So whenever I get hungry, the first thing I do is I take a teaspoon of coconut oil.
Nice, yeah.
And then when I'm cooking, that coconut oil is going to work on my hunger, so that by the time I've actually prepared my meal, I'm generally eating less.
Yeah, how much food that you eat is mitigated by your satiation levels.
Yeah, so fat to satiety. That's it. How was your week, Richard?
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. We're recording in the week of Thanksgiving. It's actually the day after Thanksgiving here. And I did my quarterly blood tests today. I'll know the results next week. And you may remember that for the past 3 months, I've gone off all oral diabetic medication. I was on metformin, even though my doctor said I really didn't need it. I was really trying to aim for the lowest possible blood sugar readings I could, or the the best possible glucose control. And so I went off metformin I wanted to see if I could maintain non-diabetic ranges of glucose without any oral medication.
Yeah.
And I've been doing spot tests of using my glucometer, and it's going to be tight. It's going to be close. My HbA1c for the previous quarter, 3 months ago, was 5.2, and it's been like that for over 2 years. So it's going to be interesting to see how much higher, if any, I will be above 5.2. I may be lower. Who knows?
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so that's my week. How was yours?
So Thanksgiving here in the States was last night, actually, after, we're recording this the morning after here in the United States. And I had a great time. I basically prepped my gravy stock the night before on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so that meant I went out and I bought turkey necks, 3 turkey necks, and I browned them up, and with the femurs from the thighs that I did, we did this whole show where I put up
spatchcocking thing.
Yeah. And so I made the stock from that and put it in the fridge overnight and made gravy from it yesterday. And I did the turkey thighs stuffed with herbs, and I got a turkey breast, and I made low carb stuffing and cauliflower mash and
I'm getting hungry again.
And I did Julie's German cabbage too.
Oh, you did? How was that?
Yeah, everybody loved it. That was fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, the fennel seed and the cloves just make that pop.
Yes.
And cider vinegar. And I also made my Brussels sprouts. So we had 3 cabbages, really. We had cauliflower, we had Brussels sprouts, and red cabbage.
Nice.
No complaints.
All the high carb people didn't notice, right?
Nobody noticed.
They all thought it was good food.
It was just good food.
That's the trick.
Yep.
That's how you do Thanksgiving.
That's how you do Thanksgiving. So, and I didn't put on any weight because my glucose was under control the whole night. Oh, and I also did the pumpkin mousse, and we all had a little bit of that afterwards. I mean, it was essentially a repeat of what I did before.
Yep.
All right. Well, before we bring Shane on, let's get to some
mail. Mail. So this is a mail from Christopher, who posts in our Facebook group, and he says, I had posted about an NSV, that's a non-scale victory, a few weeks ago when I had to get taken off blood pressure and triglyceride meds because my blood pressure had dropped too low. And this sometimes happens when you go on a keto diet. It modifies how your kidneys deal with salt, and if you're on medication to lower your blood pressure, then you sometimes naturally end up going to a normal blood pressure, and that medication could drop it even further. So
you overshoot it.
I suggest, you overshoot. And so I suggest to people who are on blood pressure, hypertensive medication, to talk to their doctor and let them know that you're about to start a diet and it could affect things, and maybe they may want to modify your medication.
Yeah.
So he goes on, he says, I had to have a retest because of my kidney function. And thankfully, I was able to get off the meds, that was for triglyceride and for blood pressure. And the issues with his kidney function disappeared on their own, for which he's relieved. But he says the happy part of the follow-up visit was that I got the chance to rerun my lipid panel again. And now I could tell how much effect could be blamed on the medication and how much I could blame on the diet. So before he started keto, and he was on medication. He was on medication to lower his triglycerides. His triglycerides were 1,130.
Oh, my gosh.
So this is medicated before keto.
Wow.
For comparison, I never had triglyceride medication, but the worst I ever was 1,111. So I was up at the same range. And when I told Dr. Finney that last week. He said, man, when they took blood, it must have been cloudy because you could see the fat in it.
Yeah.
So anyway, Christopher's score before keto on medication was 1130.
Jeez.
When he went on keto, but he was medicated, his score dropped from 1130 to 83.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing.
Triglycerides of 83. I know, right? So this is literally, he's right in the zone where his triglycerides are under 100, so his LDL is large and buoyant. It's no longer small and dense.
Right.
And it's ideal. So the interesting thing is that was on keto with medication. So what were these newfangled medication that he was taking? What was the effect when he went off those and got retested a couple of weeks later? So when he tested having been on keto only with no fenofibrate, which is this medication, his triglycerides went from 83 to 67.
Wow.
So that's the difference between making a dietary change and having pharmaceuticals. And
it turns out the pharmaceuticals were not only not working for him, they were hindering him by about 20 points.
Yes, you're right, Carl. That's exactly it. It's incredible, isn't it?
It is incredible.
Absolutely incredible. It shows you what happens when you get out of the way of the body and let it manage things properly. Don't give it carbohydrates and disturb the system, and everything all starts to work for you. Yeah.
Okay, here's another one from Kristen, and she says, an NSV of a different sort that I wanted to share, as I'm sure there are others dealing with similar issues. The last few weeks have been beyond emotionally hard for me for several reasons, and this will continue for at least another few weeks. Here's the thing, though. For nearly 10 years, I suffered with depression and anxiety, often quite crippling. Within 2 months of starting a keto diet, I was off all my meds. 4 months in, and I am now in the best mental state I can remember as an adult.
Oh, wow.
Which brings me to my NSV. I see no relapse mentally on the horizon. I am tired and emotionally exhausted at the moment, but I am not turning to food to fix things. I'm able to process things so much better. It's amazing, and every day I'm so thankful for having made the changes that I've made.
Oh, that's incredible. It really does. Brenda was telling us this on episode 21, that it really changed her depressive cycles. And this is just a wonderful example.
Congratulations, Kristen.
Yeah, congratulations, Kirsten. So the third mail that we have was from Sania. And Sania says, I had a checkup at my cardiologist today. The same cardiologist who last year told me it would be quote unquote, highly unlikely that I'd be able to reduce my cholesterol without taking one of the 3 scripts that she had written for me. Well, I never filled any of them, and I did improve my lipid scores with diet alone. Fancy that.
Yeah.
Well done. We've all done that.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Anyway, so today I broached the idea of a calcium heart scan, and to cut a long story short, she doesn't recommend it and wouldn't give me a referral as she doesn't feel it's necessary. I don't actually need one. I can just have it anyway. But she did say that if I wanted to, she would refer me for an angiogram. This is actually a much more complicated procedure that costs a lot more money. And
it's invasive, isn't it?
It's invasive, and it's done by cardiologists. So,
right.
They don't want to go sending any money to radiologists, obviously. Anyway, back to Sania. She says, in her words, this is the cardiologist, a calcium scan would not show soft plaque in the arteries, whereas an angiogram will. And as I have high cholesterol, 7.8 total, that is what causes the soft plaque. Therefore, that's the risk factor I should be taking the cholesterol-lowering drugs for, according to the cardiologist. So I mentioned to the cardiologist that I do research without blindly following what people tell me, and that there is a lot of research pointing to the fact that cholesterol is not the huge deal when it comes to coronary risk factors, as we have been led to believe. I think her eyes may have glazed over at that point. Her answer to me was, well, we still believe it is, and with your lipid profile, well, you need to be improving that. She almost had a coronary herself when I mentioned that I cook everything in butter. Yeah, so I really appreciated myself getting my own calcium score because I got a score of 0, and that's good. But what's better is that I know exactly what's happening in there. And the calcification, if you have a score of 0, you pretty much have a 15-year warranty against a heart attack. So it cost me about $140, so it was well worth it. So Gabor says you can actually have a CAC scan without a referral, but supposedly that costs more, around about $100. He disagrees that calcium sequestering, which is where the plaque takes in calcium, He disagrees that that is an unimportant marker. If you only have soft plaques, then the event risk is way lower than showing extended calcification, which is what he's really saying is that if you have calcified plaques, your risk is so much higher. And that's why it's a critical factor. Even though the soft plaques come first, the calcification is what happens prior to the risk.
All right, before we bring Shane on here, there's one more thing that I want to read. And I had posted a couple of days ago in our Facebook group, which now has, we're creeping towards 9,000 members. We're almost 8,600 members.
Yeah.
I posted a screenshot of the statistics for the downloads that I get every once in a while. I post, you know, this is how many times our shows have been downloaded. It lists each show and the number of downloads. And Dr. Fung's show is still kicking it at over 90,000 downloads. And
I know.
But it also puts the costs of each show, you know, of these downloads in a column to the right.
Yeah, we pay to have these podcasts hosted. It's a small couple of fractions of a cent per download, but, you know, it does add up.
It does add up, yeah. But that's not why I posted it. I posted it because I wanted people to see the download numbers. And then a couple of people commented, wow, I had no idea that it costs so much money to put on a podcast. I figured it was just, you know, either free or cheap, but I can see that this is costing you guys a bit of money. And then one of our members, John, posted, Carl recently posted a pic detailing the number of downloads and associated costs. I never imagined it cost too much to put out a popular podcast. And then he says, I don't know about the rest of you, but these guys have been invaluable to helping me turn my life around. I very much appreciate listening to their podcasts without the constant advertising and shilling for donations. There are over 8,000 of us here on Facebook. I went to 2ketodudes.com and hit the donate button, and I challenge the rest of you to do the same so that these guys can continue doing what they're doing for the insulin-resistant and type 2 diabetic community. And heck, if 33 people didn't make a donation in the last couple of days because of that post.
That's wonderful, people. We have a lot of great people in our group, listeners as well as people in our Facebook group. There are a few people in the Facebook group who've never, ever heard us on a podcast, surprisingly.
Yeah, right.
But,
That's true.
you know, we appreciated the response.
So much.
I guess Thanksgiving is a good opportunity for us to be thankful for the community that's built up around this. I mean, we did this for our own benefit. The reason that we podcast in the first place was as a commitment device to help Carl to stick to keto in the beginning process.
That's right.
And then we got such a large community so quickly of people who were really getting great benefit out of it that we ourselves got enormous benefit by being able to help people. So, you know, so for us, it's slightly selfish. We're doing it because we enjoy doing it, but we're very grateful for our admins who spread across the globe and help keep our forum going. If it was just Carl and I, we wouldn't be able to have the Facebook group of the size that we have.
That's right. So thank you so much for those who donated. And you're right, we're not going to turn this into an NPR fund drive, but thank you. If you do feel like donating, we will happily take your money. Yeah. And that brings us to our guest today, Richard. Shane Barnbrook hails from Central Victoria, Australia. He's been doing keto for around 18 months and has lost just over 100 pounds. And Shane comes from a social work background. He spent over 10 years working with disadvantaged youth. He was a stay-at-home dad for the 2 years leading up to his accident, which he's here to tell us about. Welcome, Shane.
G'day. Welcome, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Tell us your story.
Well, it started in around the 1st of February 2012. I was busy playing a computer game, so I was scoffing some leftover chicken curry that my grandmother had sent home with my wife.
Scoffing in Australia is eating.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll do the
You were pretty chuffed about it, weren't you?
Yeah. I've known Richard for about 10 years, so there you go.
That's right.
Anyway, I was eating this chicken curry really quickly, and I didn't notice that there was half a wishbone in it, which I swallowed the wishbone. So about 2 days later, this was the first of my mistakes. About 2 days later, it got caught behind my chest, and I thought I had indigestion, which I'd never had indigestion before. So I took a heap of antacids. Now, apparently, the acid in your stomach can dissolve chicken bones, but because I had the antacids, it didn't dissolve the chicken bone. And it continued down through, and it ended up, that was a Monday night, and by the Thursday night I passed it, but I started feeling really sick. And I went to the hospital and they said, chicken bones are sterile, nothing could have gone wrong. That was on the Saturday morning. By the Sunday night, I couldn't stand up. I got my grandparents to take me to the emergency department, and I remember I had to lay on the floor, like I couldn't stand or even sit in a seat in the emergency department. And the last thing I remember, they took me into the emergency room, and I remember projectile vomiting about 3 meters.
That's impressive.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was sitting on the bed and I hit the wall at the opposite side of the cubicle.
Wow.
Apparently they kept me in at that hospital, and that was the last thing I remember, was that vomit. They kept me in that hospital, and by about 3 a.m, they sent me down to a bigger hospital in Melbourne. The next morning they started an operation. I remember none of this. I continued to go downhill, and after about a week, they'd done, I think it was 9 operations. They couldn't find the source of the infection.
Did the chicken bone perforate your intestine? Or
Yeah.
Yeah. So toxic shock.
I'd gone septic, fully septic, because they ended up removing, I think it was 72% of my bowel and my entire lower intestine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was in an induced coma for just over 2 weeks. It ended up, it was something like 13 operations they had until they found the infection. Wow. All this I should have said, on the 11th of February, so this started basically on the 1st. On the 11th of February, they called in a Catholic priest to read my last rites and got all my family in and said, he's not going to make it through the night. So that was the 11th.
Wow.
Then on the 15th of February, my wife gave birth to our 3rd child. So she was 9 months pregnant through all this. And when they brought me out of the coma, I don't really remember the first 3 or 4 months. But I developed a thing that only people that get severe septicemia get, and that's called critical illness polyneuropathy. And it's basically a complete atrophy of all your muscles. So my first memories, I had to have a tracheotomy. I've still got a really nice scar in the middle of my chest. And with that tracheotomy, of course, you can't talk. And because I had complete atrophy, I couldn't move anything below my neck. So even like if you imagine having an itchy nose, and you can't move your arms to scratch your nose, and you can't talk to say, can you just come over and scratch my nose? You just have to lay there and deal with it.
Wow.
So I was in the ICU for about 6 months, the intensive care unit, and then they sent me to a rehab unit. But because of my size, they weren't turning me side to side well enough. And so I developed a pressure wound on my back that also went septic. So they ended up having to send me back to the original hospital. And I had 2 lots of surgery on my lower back where they ended up, I got osteomyelitis, so that's an infection in the bone. So they had to cut out my coccyx.
Oh my God.
And I actually still have the remnants of the pressure sore. I've been told that may never heal.
Wow.
Like, even though, so there's still sort of an open wound, which I'd say I'm in good company. I mean, Henry VIII had an ulcer on his leg for 40-odd years. And
A famous turkey eater.
yeah, that's right.
And also probably a famous diabetic as well.
Yeah,
Probably right, yeah.
Massive. Probably the only one who could afford to eat the amount of food necessary to become diabetic in the Tudor era.
So I went back to hospital and I was in a medical ward for 5 months. And then they sent me to a different rehab unit where I was in the rehab there for 9 months.
So this adventure had been how long in total by now?
20 months, thereabouts.
20 months.
Yeah. So I was home for about 3 months, 4, and I had no funding or any additional care. It was just my wife. And so she ended up she's got calcifications on her shoulder, a ligament tear on her hip, and a stomach hernia.
So what was that caused by?
From having to move me around, because I still didn't have enough function to roll in bed, or because I couldn't get in and out of bed at that stage.
Wow.
So she'd have to hoist me out of the wheelchair, push the hoist over the bed, lower me down.
Oh, jeez.
Before all this happened, Shane was big but active and mobile, and he didn't have too many problems. But once all this happens and you're now immobilised, he literally could not move himself below his neck, and so he had to have somebody sort of move him from side to side of the bed just to relieve pressure. Yeah. And that pressure of doing that, she had a hernia and did a ligament in her shoulder. She's a big, solid, strong girl, but Shane's a big lad. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, on that, for that 20 months that I was in hospital, they had to move me every 2 hours. That was all through the night. So for 20 months, I never had more than 2 hours straight sleep because they had to wake me up to
good Lord
to roll me over. So that was fun. Yeah. So anyway, I went to respite in a nursing home. I was supposed to be there for 7 weeks so Sarah could have the hernia repair. And after about 5 weeks, it was decided that the repair had failed. So they were going to have to keep me in the nursing home. And it ended up in total, I was there for about 2 years, living in a nursing home. And Sarah since had another hernia operation. This time, I hope they fixed it. And she's having her hip operated on mid next year, I think July.
Did anybody put 2 and 2 together and offer you any kind of in-home care?
Well, we have now. This is how come I've come home again now, because it was costing the government more to keep me in a nursing home than it would have was. Right. At the moment, I have carers come in every day that help me get out of bed. And I can get myself into bed now, and I can actually roll around in bed.
So you're not paralyzed anymore?
No. Well, I'm class what they call incomplete quadriplegic. So it's still when you don't have full function. My arms and legs, like I can't walk or anything. I can kick my feet out. Right. So I've got some movement back, but it's not like, I'm still in an electric wheelchair and get hoisted into it every morning. That was something I found just on a side note. I went and watched Doctor Strange recently.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's supposed to have neurological damage that stops him from using his hands. And it was so shocking. As someone who lives with neurological damage, I can't use my hands properly every day. Watching him trying to act as someone who couldn't do that, I was like, he should have...
He should have called you as a consultant.
Yes, that's right. He should have come and spent a week over here and, I could show him how to do it properly.
Yeah, that was Benedict Cumberbatch, wasn't it?
Yeah, yes, it was. But anyway, but now I can actually, and this is where because I was a big guy, as Richard said.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff, a lot of the rehabs are getting to stand again. But even I can get myself into bed now. A lot of that was nearly impossible at my size because, I couldn't lift myself up to get across to the bed and all the rest of it.
So how big are we talking here, Shane?
Well, I had, we bought these scales before I got sick, and they topped out at 180 kilo, and I thought, that'll be, fine. And I got on it, and they said, no, too heavy, we can't read.
One at a time, please.
Yes.
Wow.
So I was over 180 kilo.
That's about 400 pounds?
Yeah. 400. So I'm at about 130 now.
The 130 is about 280. So you've lost about 120 pounds almost.
Yeah, around there.
Wow, that's great.
That's weighable anyway, because as I said, it was over 180.
And obviously, since you've done the ketogenic diet, some function has come back in addition to just losing weight, right? So what was that transformation?
I was telling Richard, I've had an old friend I actually went to kindergarten with. He's a myotherapist, so he does nutrition stuff as well. And he's really on board with the keto stuff, and he's been able to help fire up my nerves and do a lot of those sorts of deep muscle massage and acupuncture and all those sorts of things to try and get that function back as well. So
you had a problem when you were at the nursing home getting onto a ketogenic diet, didn't you?
yes.
So what was that experience like?
Yeah, that was very frustrating. Because in sort of, institutions, the thinking is definitely not ketogenic. So it ended up I had to, because I was starting to intermittent fast, so I wouldn't have anything until they bring around afternoon tea. Because normally they bring breakfast, so your typical cereal breakfast. Then they bring like cake and tea or coffee. And it was interesting, before I went there, they never had sweeteners.
Right. So everybody had sugar?
Yes, everyone there. It was a 40-bed nursing home.
Yeah, these are all mostly geriatrics, though.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
These are people who grew up without sweeteners in their lives. And
absolutely.
You were like a 30-year-old guy in a house full of 70-year-olds.
Yep.
80-year-olds.
Wow.
Yep.
Jeez.
So they used to send down 2 boiled eggs for afternoon tea, and then I'd have a protein shake or a tin of tuna or, mix it up for something to have for tea. So that's how I managed to survive. And now I'm home and having proper cooked.
Real food.
Yes. We just got 4 chickens that have just started to lay, so we have our own eggs coming in.
Ah. Fresh eggs, they're awesome.
Yeah.
And you guys grow a lot of your own food, don't you?
Yes. So we've just put in a huge, I actually just posted in the keto group on Reply to Brenda's. We just put in a huge, we basically turned our front yard into a veggie garden, so.
Nice.
Got all sorts of different things growing.
You do the same too, Richard, right? You grow a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Warrigal greens and potamarins and silver beets and tomatoes, a lot of herbs as well. We use a lot of fresh herbs. Herbs are probably one of the easiest things to grow. I mean, you can have black thumbs. You could be notorious for killing plants and still grow herbs. They take punishment.
Yeah, we had Sarah. Because we buy cheap cuts of meat, and one that's really cheap is chicken cutlets. They're just so Sarah, we buy them and she just roasts them, and we picked our own, like a lettuce spinach mix, and there was no better meal than your homegrown lettuce and spinach mix with some freshly roasted chicken. I can tell you, it was amazing.
Delicious.
Yeah. So I can transfer myself now into bed. I haven't quite got because I can't sit up properly yet. So once I can actually sit up on my own, well, then I'll be able to transfer out of bed.
But I notice your fingers work and you're actually using the computer.
Yeah. I can type.
When did that function come back?
It was probably only about 2 years ago. So it's almost 5 years. So that come back about 2 years ago. Yeah, well, slowly. Okay. When my hands first come back, I could bend my fingers probably at about 45%. 45 degrees, I mean. And now I can bend them all the way, like my fingertips can touch.
You can make a fist now.
Yeah. So.
Wow. And do you think that will continue to improve?
It will continue to improve, but at what level I'll never get back to being...
Got it.
A regular walking around kind of person. But I'm sure it'll continue to.
Did you have inflammation that was exacerbated by your condition that went down after you started a ketogenic diet?
Oh, definitely. Especially with the rehab. I used to get, because you sit still constantly, you have a lot of swelling and stuff, particularly in your lower legs and just sitting still. Yeah. So keto has definitely helped a lot with that and a lot with my ankles and feet in particular.
Yeah, that's great. And how's Sarah doing?
Yeah, she's doing really well. As I said, she's entertaining tonight, so she's not around. But for her, the inflammation has been a huge thing with the ketogenic diet. Particularly, as I said, she's got
especially her hip.
Yeah, the shoulder injury and the hip injury.
Yeah.
Yeah, the inflammation difference it's made just from not having those sort of carbs in a diet.
Yeah.
Huge.
A lot of people don't really understand that, and some people in my family are among them, that even what we consider to be healthy carbs, whole grain breads and cereals and fruits contribute so much to inflammation that you really have to cut them all out.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. You've got some serious grit there, my friend, and so does Sarah.
Well, we do what we can.
The latest thing really is Shane was talking to me the other day, and this is the main reason that we got him on. And he was asking me if I knew anything about ketogenic diets for children and anything about ketogenic diets for cancer. And I said, well, yeah, I know a few people who've put their kids on keto, but kids can really have a relaxed keto. They're not going to kids are a lot more insulin sensitive than adults, and so that they can tolerate a lot more glucose than we can, especially when they're very deranged, like the three of us are. I mean, Shane, were you diabetic before? You were diabetic before you got ill, or you were very close?
Yes. I was on metformin, so I was pre-diabetic. But I had full organ failure, so I was on dialysis for a while, and that night when I was supposed to have died, my blood pressure was 37/17, and they had to the head of the intensive care unit stayed overnight, and they had to use an ultrasound on my heart to make sure that my heart was still beating, because they couldn't feel my pulse, like they couldn't get a reading. So
wow, you got to be pretty bad when the Catholic Church gives up on you.
yeah. And that, as I keep saying to people, like, does that mean I can go out and sin now? I mean, I've had my last.
I think you've got a free pass. Yeah.
Do you have any triggers like around curry? If somebody says, "Let's go out for a curry,"
No, I still eat chicken, obviously. Yeah. Well, it's funny actually. Because the recipe that my grandmother cooked was like an old family favourite. It's a way to use up leftover chicken, so after big events.
Right.
And they cooked it about 12 months later, and like my grandmother was like, "Oh, I swear, we've been through it, made sure there's no bones and all the rest of it." She served up a big plate to my wife, and like the first thing she got was a big piece of bone. And she was,
oh no!
So. Yes, there.
I remember after this happened, the first time Shane got online, pretty much the first thing he says is, "I will never eat chicken again." But the problem is chicken is delicious.
Yeah, I know.
That's right.
So I chew a lot more carefully now.
So getting back to the whole keto for kids and cancer, what's the impetus behind those queries?
Well, so I said I've got 3 children, and my oldest daughter, who's 7, looks like she's got brain tumours. So that comes as a bit of a shock.
Oh.
Yeah, she both of my older 2 children have dual diagnosis, so they are autistic as well as having ADHD. So with Katie, she's the young girl. The biggest sign was her autism medication has stopped working. She put on about 8 kilos in a month.
Wow, that's a lot for a kid.
Yeah. She complains of occasional blurred vision and headaches and all the rest of it. So we saw this. Okay. We went and saw a pediatrician, and he said that basically is the only thing that he knows. So she's booked in to go to our state's children's hospital to have scans, but because of her age, they have to give her a general anaesthetic. They can't just give her an MRI. So
she has to be still for almost several hours, I guess.
Whatever it takes, and they do the radio, like they inject her with the ink into her brain so they can. Test it all out.
And so are they cutting their carbohydrates and all of that stuff too?
Yeah, well, that's what we were going to do, because I'd sort of read through, I think it was even through you guys' group, through Keto Dudes, about keto having an effect on cancers and tumours and things like that. And so
Right.
That's as soon as I found out that was all going on, that's I spoke to Richard about, what can we do?
Yeah, there's a few really good success stories of people shrinking tumors with a ketogenic diet. Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be going for.
Good.
The biggest things are, because she used to share a room with her little sister, but now, because of the new medication, she stays up a lot later at night. She went on this new medication after seeing the podiatrist. She also used to sleep on the top bunk, but he said that she shouldn't share a room or sleep on the top bunk anymore. So
you've probably heard of this thing that I made for programmers called Music to Code By?
No.
Well, this has turned out to be effective for one of my customers whose daughter is autistic and can't sleep. And it turned out to be the only thing that could help her sleep at night.
There you go.
And so what it is it's music that is scientifically formulated in tempo and content to put you into a state of flow, to relax and help you focus.
We'll have to check that out.
It's been very effective, very effective. So I'll give you a copy of that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
And I was saying to Richard, we're having a keto launch party to get the family in the swing of things in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Great.
Because the friend that I mentioned earlier, he's really keen on fully kicking into the keto lifestyle. So
Awesome.
So this is something Carl does. He has dinners over at his place. He invites a bunch of people, talks to them about the keto diet, and then gives them some keto food. And and he's basically making converts, which is wonderful.
Yep.
And basically, it's clearing up misinformation and fears and things. Yeah.
Yep. We're basically going to have a big kickoff feast.
Get the pizza going.
Yeah.
That always works.
That's what I think we're going to do. That's what I was talking about.
One quick question, Shane. Did you set up a Kickstarter or a fund?
Yeah, I was in the middle of setting one up tonight.
Can we briefly talk about it and just?
Well, as I said, Katie used to share a bedroom with her sister, and now we've got to put her in her own room. So we've actually got to basically redesign our house yet again.
How are you guys going to afford that? I mean, you don't have a lot of money coming in.
No, we don't. We don't at all. If we set up a fundraising page for it, we're hoping to get some stuff together, and I've got a heap of friends who are going to come around, and
that's great.
We got an old room. It's just got cement sheeting on it.
Right, gyprock,
yeah.
Drywall.
Yeah, gonna plaster that and put some insulation, turn it into a proper third bedroom, and put in some air conditioning or something. And
so we will put a link to your GoFundMe page.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
And you know what? We might as well give you the link, shane.2keto.com right now.
Yeah, if you go to shane.2keto.com, you can help donate money and help Shane build a special bedroom for his daughter.
Because you can see he didn't do anything to deserve this sequence of events that snowballed from a curry.
I know.
Last week was my wife and I's 10th anniversary. And I've said, in the last 10 years, we've gone through what some couples, wouldn't go through half it in a lifetime.
Yeah.
We've gone through it in the last 10 years. So
you guys have shown incredible grit. I mean, there's not much you can do except deal with everything as it comes along.
We get asked that a lot, how do you keep going? And there's just there's no other way.
The alternative sucks, though, Shane, doesn't it?
That's right. You just gotta soldier on.
Very good. Shane, thank you so much, and give our love to Sarah and the kids as well.
Oh, well. Thank you. Thank you for having me around.
Thanks.
Wow, Richard, what a great story. Thank you for bringing Shane.
Yeah, more than happy to. He's a remarkable guy. It's funny, when life throws you a lot of challenges, you've got two opportunities. You can either curl up into a ball or you can stand up and face them. And most people don't get the kind of challenges that Shane's had thrown at him, and he's a remarkable fellow for being able to maintain his humour through all of that.
Yeah.
And as you saw, he's a funny guy.
He is a funny
really
guy,
is.
yeah. Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about food now. It's time for
Recipes!
Recipes.
Gingivitis.
No chicken curry today.
No, we're not going to do chicken
No.
curry as a recipe. We were tempted, but no.
Yeah, we were tempted, but no, sure wouldn't. Should I go first, or you want to go first?
No. I want to hear what you've got, Carl.
Okay. Well, last week, as you may or may not know, I spent the week in Amsterdam, or just outside of Amsterdam in a town called Haarlem. It's Haarlem, like Harlem, New York City, but with 2 A's in Haarlem.
2 A's, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we went to this restaurant called Ratatouille, which is interesting because they have the silhouette of the rat, you know, the movie Ratatouille.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but it was very good. And it was one of these hot cuisine places where you don't get an option. You just say, what are your food allergies? And then they bring you,
Something.
course after course after course. And
Wow.
they were very accommodating, by the way. People who had various intolerances or whatever, very happy to do ketogenic. And I had all sorts of great food. But the best part of it was this perfectly cooked egg.
Okay.
And I said, how did they do this? And she says, 63 degrees Celsius, obviously, for 3 hours in a water bath in a
Nice.
sous vide.
So describe the egg for me. Was it in the shell?
Oh, no. It was on top of some other stuff, which includes some smoked meat and things. But the egg itself was perfect. And when I say perfect, like it was still runny, it still oozed, but it was thick. You know what I mean? It was
So the
perfect.
outside of the egg was solid. It had set.
Yeah, the white, it wasn't solid. It wasn't, solid like a hard-boiled egg is solid.
Okay. Yeah,
it was just perfect. It was just like not too solid and not too runny.
nice.
And I can't describe it any other way. It was just perfect. And the egg yolk ran slowly, but it was thick. Do you know what I mean? It hadn't set, so it was solid, and yet it wasn't just runny. It was, I can't
raw.
describe it. It was
cooked.
perfect.
Yeah.
It was
Cooked,
perfect.
but still, yeah.
Yeah. And so I found this website at seriouseats.com, which is Sous Vide 101, all about eggs. And I'm going to link to it because they did the hard work of trying different temperatures and different times and describing and taking pictures of the eggs at different temperatures and different times.
Yeah, I've actually got their book, the Food Lab book, and it's remarkable. It goes through a lot of they've done experiments of cooking steaks the same way, and eggs for different temperatures and different times. They've done a lot of the legwork really.
So I've decided on 63 degrees for 1.5 hours, and that I'm going to try that. I haven't done it yet, but I found this website, and I have a sort of a poor man's sous vide, as you probably heard in a previous show.
The dork food.
Yeah, it uses a crock pot and this device called a dork food regulator, which is essentially a little thing that you plug the crock pot into, and then you plug this thing into the wall, and it, with a temperature sensor, turns the crock pot on and off to regulate a temperature that you set.
Right.
So I'm going home right now and try this, and I'll let you know next week what happens.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's my recipe. What do you got?
Yeah. So I've actually got probably the first or second recipe I ever put on my own blog, and this was a recipe. It's actually a slow squid, and it's a recipe from Raymond Blanc, who's a famous TV chef. Well, he's a famous French chef. I think he's got two hats, and he's taught multiple 3-hat chefs, and so he's a really one of the top French chefs, and does a lot of videos. You'll be able to find them on YouTube, and we'll link to a couple of examples, and where he explains the science and the mechanism of cooking. So when I first started, I really learned to cook from people like Raymond Blanc and Marco Pierre White, who are probably the older generation of TV cooks who really gave a lot of the detail of the mechanism of cooking, why you do things. A lot of the modern TV cooks like Jamie Oliver, Emerald Lagasse, they show you a recipe, they get it on the plate, and they give you enough information so that you can get it on your plate as well. But these older chefs all explain to you why they do what they do, and I find that fascinating. I'm attracted to the science of cooking.
Sure.
So anyway, he talks about this recipe it's a slow squid, and basically squid's interesting. There's two ways to cook squid. You either cook it very quickly, or you cook it for an hour. No in between. If you cook it in between, it's like making rubber bands.
Yeah.
It's like eating rubber bands.
I've had a cuttlefish at a local Thai restaurant, and they cook it quickly.
Right.
Obviously, they have to.
Yeah.
And it's rubbery, but they like it. It's tasty, but it's rubbery.
They cook it a bit too long. But if you cook it for like 15 seconds, it's delicious. If you cook it for 30 seconds, it becomes rubbery, and it stays rubbery until about 59 minutes and 30 seconds, and then it becomes what it ends up becoming is the collagens in the muscle break down and they turn into gelatin.
Yeah.
And the mouthfeel is almost like, it's kind of similar to silken tofu.
Oh.
But the amazing difference is the flavour. Quick squid deep fried is usually sort of lathered in salt and pepper because it has almost no taste.
Right.
It's just a vehicle for currying mayonnaise or whatever it is you're dipping into it. Mm-hmm. But squid, when it's slow cooked, develops a really interesting seafood flavour, which is quite delicious.
Wow, I'm going to have to try it.
Yeah, so this is essentially, it's really a stew. And so what you're doing is you're starting off with about half a kilo of squid tubes. And three tubes was almost exactly 500 grams, half a kilo. So that's about what you want. And I guess about a pound of squid tubes.
Sure.
And so what you do is you clean the skin from the outside of the tubes and you remove the spine. That's like a little bit of cartilage that's down the middle of them. And then you open the tubes, and with a sharp knife, you just score the squid tubes every sort of quarter of an inch.
On the outside, right?
Yeah, about a half centimetre on the outside, that's right. And then you turn it 90 degrees and you repeat it again. And what you end up with is a crisscross pattern of scoring.
Right.
And then you cut the tubes into equal size rectangles, about 15 centimetres by 5 centimetres. So I guess it's about 3 inches by an inch kind of rectangles. And what's going to happen is when they cook, they're going to curl around, and it's going to leave a nice, attractive sort of look to the dish. What I do is I reserve 2 pieces to fry at the end, and I'm going to quick fry them and then just pop them on the top of the stew as a garnish. So I've got the slow stuff in the bottom, and then I've got the quick stuff on the top. And the quick stuff will be bright white because squid, when you fry it, it's nice and white. The stuff down the bottom will be almost orange because I'm going to cook it in a stew that has got paprika. It's got a little bit of pumpkin. It's got a little bit of chorizo. It's got chili peppers, paprika, white wine.
You know what's great is chorizo goes so well with seafood.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Why is that? You don't necessarily think of putting a pork sausage in a seafood dish, but think of the Creole stuff, gumbo and jambalaya and andouille sausage, which is very similar to chorizo.
Yeah. Yeah, I have chorizo a lot with shrimp or prawns. It's delicious.
Yeah.
It really is good.
Yep.
So basically, it's what I'm doing is I'm gonna boil some wine in a saucepan, cook off the alcohol, and then I'm just gonna add all of my ingredients, and I'm gonna cook the shallots and add the chorizo and brown that, and then I'm gonna finally add the chili pepper and then what I'm going to end up with is a stew. Put the rectangles of squid in the stew, and I'm going to cook it for about an hour.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and I'll do it on a slow heat.
Yeah.
I won't put it on a hot heat. So maybe my stove goes around 6 units. I'll probably put it in number 1 and number 2. And you want it blipping just a little bit, and you're going to cook it for a good hour. If you cook it any less, it's going to be like rubber bands. But
now, do you have a flame stove, like a gas stove or a propane stove, or is it electric?
No, I've got an electric one currently. Yeah, I've for the past year, I've been in a pokey little kitchen in a place that I rented in Canberra. My home is we rent out to other people down at Bateman's Bay, and that has a very expensive DeLonghi
nice
gas. It's way too nice for them.
Yeah, I have propane ranges, and I found that putting them on low sometimes is too hot for slow cooking.
Yeah,
and I've figured out a technique when I do beef stew and things. of taking the burners, which are these cast iron thick, 1 inch
Sure.
thick grates, and stacking them on top of each other. So I have about 3 high. And then I put the pot on top of that, and with that on low, it will still bring a stew to a slow rolling boil. So you kind of just have to be careful.
Yeah, you can actually get, we have a hexagonal metal plate that we use in that scenario, and it's got dimples in it, and it raises the pot off the surface, and so you then end up getting an indirect heat, or I guess a radiated heat. So the plate sits on the fire, on the propane burner, and then it's got these dimples that hold the pot up a little bit, and then the pot gets the radiated heat.
So this sounds really good. How do you serve it?
Yeah, so in the end, what I do is I fry the 2 reserve pieces of squid in a deep fryer full of hot lard for no more than a minute. Ideally, probably about 25 seconds is perfect. As soon as it starts to curl, pull it out, because if you leave it in for too long, it will turn into rubber bands. And then you just pop those on on top of a bowl of the stew, just to remind. Basically, it just reminds everybody that you know 2 ways to cook squid, and it sort of tells them what's in the stew.
It's like, hey, I have technique. All right.
Yeah, I have technique. So anyway, I'm going to put a link to the video of Raymond Blanc explaining this.
Great.
He does a much better job than I do. And I'll put a link to a recipe so that you can follow what I did, plus some pictures of the food that I made.
That sounds great, Richard. Delicious.
So that's my recipe.
All right, man. That's a show, a really good one this week, buddy.
Yeah, it's been good.
All right. Well, of course, if you have anything you want to tell us, something we said wrong, something you don't agree with, some more research that you found to support or refute what we've said, send it by email to dudes@twoketodudes.com or post it on our website.
Yeah, and you can follow us on Twitter at 2ketodudes or on Instagram at 2ketodudes. And, of course, if you want to join our Facebook community, there's about 8,600 of us there.
Yeah.
And it's at fb.2keto.com.
Keep calm and keto on, Richard.
Yeah, keep calm and keto on, Carl.
All right. And we'll see you next time on 2 Keto Dudes.